Welcome to the EatingCast. I am Chris.
And I am Vincent, and today we are joined by Mae Flores. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. It was an honor to have you on. So, Mae, just so our guests know and our listeners know, give us a little bit of rundown of who you are, what you do, what you're about. If you advocate anything, what do you advocate, and kind of where you're going.
Okay, I'm Mae Flores. I am an advocate. I'm a public speaker for, sexual assault victims. Mm-hmm. I advocate a lot and speak for those that can't speak for themselves. That's what I do. I'm doing a lot of things. I speak. Mm-hmm. I work with workshops, projects. I work a little bit with the city of Chicago on helping out empower young girls and women. A lot of it has to do with just bringing awareness to sexual assault. Mm-hmm. And, not just in general, but more in a finite way mm-hmm. within our Asian communities and just in, minority communities in general. Mm-hmm. So I write, I speak, I tell stories, I work with small and large scale organizations like UN and UN Women. Okay. In New York and locally with the UN chapter here in the city. But a lot of my work is focused on that and speaking a lot about, what happens to women who immigrate and, start lives here. Mm-hmm. And that the story is not always pleasant.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you're from the Philippines, right?
Yes, I was born in the Philippines and I immigrated when I was 11.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I actually went over kind of on YouTube. I stumbled upon kind of your storytelling about kind of like you, your sister, your mom, and your kind of story of your immigration, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's just really, in my opinion, really heartwarming, at least to see there are people that are kind of like willing to kind of step out of their way to kind of do their part in reconnecting or trying to bring a mother and their children back together. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if you're okay with it, if you don't mind, would you kind of like give our listeners kind of like a little blurb about that?
Yeah, my mom, there was a revolution happening mm-hmm. in the Philippines during that time, and they were very tight on immigration. And my mom was a single parent already during that time, so my sisters and I ended up staying with cousins because mm-hmm. the border was not allowing us to leave as a family mm-hmm. because at the time they knew everybody was trying to flee. Okay. And, they obviously knew that if they allowed us to leave, we would never come back. So in order for my mom to come back, they said, you can go, but you leave your girls here. And so my mom came here to Chicago. My godmother was already here mm-hmm. and, said, I just need a job. So my very educated mother, who worked under, the Philippine Heart Center for Asia, mm-hmm. came here and was like, I will scrub floors, I will clean bathrooms. I just need to start working so I can get my children here as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. So my godmother goes, let's go to, my nursing care facility where I'm, head of nursing, and let's see if we can get you a job somewhere there. And that's how she met Jacqueline Mason, who, was the owner. And my mom cried and was like, I just need a job, any job. I have 2 girls there. And, at the time, Jacqueline didn't really realize what that entailed, mm-hmm. getting, a mother and 2 children here. Yeah. She was accustomed to sponsoring Filipino nurses at the time, so she thought it was going to be easy. Mm-hmm. But because of the political strife that mm-hmm. was happening, she had a very, it was a very long-winded process, right. which she committed to just out of the goodness of her heart. Yeah. She just felt like, I need to help this poor mother. Mothers and children, she always said, should never be separated from one another. Mm-hmm. And so she said, okay, this will be a breeze. And it ended up being this very difficult process to get us mm-hmm. through.
How long did it take?
Short in the term of, the situation was a year. Yeah. But, it took a lot of full-time work. And, she had a lot of help. And she had to tap into some connections to try to do it. And it was one, negative denial after another, like, no, you are not, those girls will not be approved. They started to know her name in the mm-hmm. Philippine consulate. they're like, oh, it's Jacqueline Mason again, you know? It's like she's requesting for this family, and even more, they made it like their personal mission not to allow us in.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know,
wild.
it went through this whole, you probably saw the video, this whole kind of like very unique situation of getting us through. And she ended up being like family when she got us here. She didn't realize, you know, this is a white woman raised in Peoria, Illinois, grew up in Kentucky, worked in like a coal mining family. She had no idea. She was a single woman, just literally made business and healthcare her life. And she ended up being my mom, you know, like in all sense and purposes. She was my mother, and they both raised us together, and they had no plan on doing that. Yeah. She just said, I'm going to help adjust this family and get them here. So it became this very loving, you know, and she passed away 10 years ago this year, and it still doesn't feel the same, you know, because she was a parent. She drove me to college, you know, she got me my first driving lesson, and she drove me to, you know, my high school entrance exam. She cried with me, she grounded me, she gave me a curfew, you know, things my mom wouldn't have known about American culture, which made our integration into culture so much smoother, because we had no idea how life was going to be here. And so we were so fortunate, more than I think a regular family that comes here and takes all those risks. She gave us that gateway to have a better life, a better and easier life here.
Yeah, but definitely like bless those people so that help sponsor people over, because my parents also were sponsored by this one guy, and they would always bring him up. He was like this very kind white man, and like my parents always talk him up like they owe a lot to him. And I'm like, if it weren't for him, like we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. It's so, and they're just out of nowhere, you know?
Yeah, I think that's like just seeing like the dynamic of kind of how each immigrant family, especially like the early or the late 90s. Sorry, let me backtrack. So like it's like from the 70s all the way up to like the late 90s. Just kind of seeing that. The difference in like how each individual family took it upon themselves to kind of like try and create something out of nothing. And then like other individuals that were sponsored to kind of come to the US and everything like that, because it's really different, just like everyone else, right? Like every single person you see out there is different, just like their family story. And that's like really awesome, right? Because like your story is like very intertwined with a lot of little things going here and there, especially with when you guys finally made that transition to go from the Philippines and then through those airports and then to Japan and then to the States.
Right, there was so
that was
much.
really interesting. That was a lot. And then like with his family just being sponsored, and like my family, we pretty much just from what my family has told me, at least, my grandfather, he used to work as a chef on a shipping boat in like the 70s, and pretty much he would see the world, right? And his family was back in China, and he just found this one place. I believe he entered through New York, so he was on the shipping boat, and then he came through New York, and then basically saw America and was like, all right, this is it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then from there, ground up, he set up shop. My grandfather's a cook. He specialized in like making noodles, wonton noodles. And we just kind of like slowly but surely, he was trying to bring everyone back over here. And he eventually did. And bless his soul, you know, he did everything he could to pretty much just provide for the family. And now my father and my uncle are doing the exact same thing, you know, and that's just amazing. Right. It's amazing.
It's like a trail of like, okay, somebody did it for us, we're going to do it, and they continue to do that. My aunt Tita J, who I call her Jacqueline Mason, became Tita J.
Yeah.
But she literally continued to keep sponsoring our family members. Yeah. It
That's
wasn't
awesome.
done for her. She just wanted us to have family here, so it became a different mission for her, and she didn't have to do any of that, you know. And now their children are here. So she would sponsor a cousin, and now their families are here.
Wow.
Most of our families here because of that generosity of
Yeah.
one person. And it's amazing. It opened a gateway because we became the first family to move here from our family. My mom has a lot of brothers and sisters and extended family, and now they have an opportunity to be here. And what they did with that opportunity is up to them. But T to J really,
Change your lives, yeah.
Yeah, like planted the seed and it grew from there. And I can't even express how, as an adult and you're thinking about it, it just changes your view of our immigration stories.
Yeah.
Because it's so unique. Everybody's stories are so unique.
For sure.
Like
It
your
really
uncle
is.
on the
Exactly.
boat. I mean, just to say, like, I'm here. Okay, this is the place.
Yeah.
After, like, going to Europe, maybe, or,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was
yeah,
just...
yeah. My grandfather, he pretty much, he went from, I want to say Hong Kong, and then he went to, like, Australia. I'm just trying to remember. I don't really remember too well, but yeah, like, he just,
Pretty much everywhere.
He had opportunity to
yeah.
stop
Yes.
anywhere.
He chose America.
yeah, he
Yeah.
went everywhere. He's been to those places, and, like, I believe somewhere in South America, all the way through Europe, and then from there to the States.
Do you think coming from like an immigrant family, does that have an effect on especially the younger kids, knowing that the previous generation went through all this shit and like they're tough, and so the younger generation feel like they can't voice their own struggles because it's not comparative to what the parents did.
Yeah, I could see that. I can see youth. I haven't heard of it, but yeah, that's a great point because when you hear the strife and the struggles of those that have come before you, how can your own worries within your own room or your own life seem so extreme to you?
Yeah.
Maybe in some ways, depending on that person, it can be an encouragement or something empowering, or it could be something that's like, forget it then, I just won't talk about it because you obviously had a more difficult life, and then you learn to keep it in, and you learn, it could be, however the personality is, it could go anywhere.
It can't go anywhere. And just like with each individual family, again, like, it's something that it's up to the family to kind of like handle it the way they want to handle it, right? Because there is going to be that separation, right, where the generation that were kids that immigrated here and the generation that was the first one to be born here, they're going to have completely different lives than their parents, just because they're the ones just trying to build that house, right, from nothing, right? They're just grabbing that dirt and just kind of putting in water and mixing it, making these little briquettes, and just building that house for you guys. That's their job,
Right.
And you have the freedom of having a roof over your head and to really explore who you are as a person and kind of like pursue your passions and do whatever you like. I actually just I watched this video last night about a family in Houston. So they are a Chinese family from Hong Kong, or I believe they're from mainland China, but solely kind of moved to Hong Kong and then over to the States. But this family is 5 generations of chefs, and the youngest generation, who was born in the States and kind of grew up in the kitchen in a like Chinese seafood restaurant. She was talking about how it was that exposure that really drove her to kind of love cooking, and what really kind of made her pursue that as a passion of hers. And her father, who's been a chef from Hong Kong to the States, has been cooking for 47 years or so. Was never gonna expect that his daughter to be like interested in pursuing like some type of culinary art.
He probably was like, be a doctor.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
Don't cook.
Exactly.
Don't cook like I did.
She's like, I want to wear a different white coat.
Yeah.
White
Oh, I love that.
apron and
That's a good one. I like
That
that.
is,
I like
I
that.
like different white coat. I love that. I think that happens, a lot. Is that like my mom expected so much more. She was an educator. She ended up getting her master's degree here in social work, and which I admired. And I remember going to school thinking like, oh, because I wanted to be a professional dancer. I remember because of Tita, she signed us up for the arts. You know, my life became dancing. I learned I love to act and dance and be in front of a crowd and perform. Then there's that part of my mom that was like, I really want you to have something more, you know, but she went along with this idea, which is uncommon for, you know, Asian parents or Islander parents, is like, you don't really encourage them to pursue the arts very much, or you don't, you know, you let them have it as a side gig, you know, as something to do in their private time. I don't want you to make hobby. A life. Right. And my mom, you know, was very much an encouragement of us pursuing the arts and maybe hoping that we'd do something else of more substance to them, not realizing, you know, that we wanted this for our lives. Like my sister ended up being a dance minor too. You know, we became, you know, really integrated into the arts. But again, planted the seed by Tita J. You know, she was like, you guys are really good at performing. I'm going to sign you up for dance classes, theater classes, voice lessons. Like, she found that. And she ran a health. She could have easily been like, you want to learn healthcare? Like, I'm right here. I own a nursing care facility. You know, and I ended up working there in high school, answering phones and being a runner. But, you know, I had all of these opportunities really to pursue what I wanted. And that's rare for an Asian family.
Oh my God, I know. And also, so it seems like your mom's very open-minded, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Was it easy for you to come out and tell her about your experiences with the sexual assault?
You know what? Not the first time. I think that's also because of maturity and also being, you know, it's such an extreme thing, and you have this idea planted in your head of, she was a dean at a high school at the time. So you have this planted, like, what did you do that could have encouraged that to happen to you? And I was scared, you know, her being an educator, working with teenagers, that she would think, you know, you shouldn't have put yourself in that situation. That was all that was going on in my mind. It's like, what did you do to encourage that man to do that to you? And we were on vacation, you know, at the time. And I remember thinking, like, I can't tell anybody. I can't, because what if I did? I don't even know what this person looks like, you know, and what if I did, you know, flirt or give him a look? It could have been my fault. So I really, you know, that sat with me for decades.
Like it was
that
your
thought.
fault.
Yeah. Right. I still do. Like in times when I'm quiet, even though I know all the tools on how to heal myself and be a little bit more logical about life, I still do that. I go through that where I'm like, you know, you could have been flirting with this person. He could have been like ship crew. He could have been, you know, you may not have given him a smile and he felt encouraged. You know, I think a lot of people of sexual, that are victims of sexual assault of all genders, you know, of all, they will do that just naturally. It's just like a kid that gets, you know, beaten up. You're going to blame yourself even if you know it's not your fault. You're going to find a way to blame yourself for things that are bad that happen to you.
That's crazy. It's kind of like your mind just sets up these what do you call them? Your mind just sets up these like little self-sabotaging kind of like you put your brain just kind of sets up like a self-sabotaging mindset that just kind of snowballs after certain events like that, like especially like traumatic events. And I feel like that's just crazy. It's mind-boggling that it does that. Especially
like if you're new to that experience and you don't have the tools to heal, and then that just like faster and gets bigger and it just gets worse from there.
Definitely. Like I think if I didn't have dance, I wasn't dancing full time, I didn't have that goal, I think that I would have been a lot more lost than I was. I already was. But at least I had a means of expression where I could just go and perform, and I was like, okay, something's getting out there. If I would do like an angry dance, it came out, you know, in choreography. Like a lot of people don't have tools, and that's why I think arts are really important in really helping people get through trauma. You know, you need an outlet, like painting, singing, dancing. You know, there needs to be an outlet for energy that inside of you. And that's why, you know, I started this program called Light Me Up.
I was actually
And
about to ask you
yeah,
that.
I started this program called Light Me Up, which were the tools that I used during, that traumatic time after that happened, my senior year in high school, to really help myself, because it wasn't perfect. I couldn't just go get therapy, I couldn't, without telling people why I needed the therapy. We didn't have the money, like I had I personally did not have the money, and I was too scared to ask for the help.
Right.
And so there needed to be ways for me to do that. And that's why it was like movement, acting, and the arts were always a big thing for me. So then I started working with the UN on a little side project which is Light Me Up. And they said, why don't we go back to how you healed yourself and maybe teach people who don't have the means to access therapy, talk to their parents right away, to just be able to use those same tools you had. So then that developed into some sort of like methodology of like what I did during that time, which was a lot of journaling, and then creating dance choreography, and then letting it out. So now I encapsulate it into like an hour class where I can work with young kids, that it can just not just be sexual violence, but it could be violence of all kinds. And so that's why I want to work with the inner city youth on how to do that when there's gun violence, or when there's violence at home, or what do you do when you can't and you're hearing the fights and the shouting outside your bedroom door or right in front of you. What can you use as tools within yourself to be able to heal? And so I use a lot of that, like tapping, about meditation and music, and the types of music that you listen to that can really like bring you back to and center yourself. So I do a lot of that in the programming.
And then for our listeners who don't know too much about your story, would you be comfortable sharing what happened to you?
Sure. It never gets easy to say it, but I do say it because I know that it helps more than it doesn't. So I was sexually assaulted on a trip with my family my senior year. It was New Year's Eve, and we were dancing with the other teenagers, and I said, I want to change out of this my dress and wear jeans, because everybody was all dressed up. So I went to my room. It was a cruise, so I went to my room, and I didn't hear anyone follow me, because all you hear on a cruise boat is like as a background, it's like white noise. And you don't really hear. And as a kid, do you really pay attention to your space and who's following you? And you're in a hurry, and you're gonna miss the party. So I was rushing. I was not paying attention.
How old were you?
I was 18.
Okay.
And I went into that hallway, and it's really narrow. And I just remember, I still visualize it, like running to it, putting the card key in, and then I was hit without, I just felt a wind, like somebody running behind me. And I just remember hitting. It was like time just right. When I turned the latch down, I remember my face just slammed on the door. And I was just, you don't have time to really gather yourself. You're just like flat. And to turn that light on, you have to put that key card back in. So the lights in the room of this cabin turn on. Okay. So I have no clue.
Right.
I have no clue what happened. All I remember is there's this little hole, in this cabin bedroom. And I remember that's all I could see from the corner of my eye. I don't even know how long it took. I don't even know. All I heard was rustling, then the door closed. It was almost like my mind blocked out a lot of things. But over the years, I remember in therapy just them gathering thoughts more and more. And I'm like, oh yeah, that happened and that happened. But one thing I do remember is sounds and smell. So a lot of the things, imagine being, a teenager and then growing up. And you connect those sounds and that smell and to your intimate relationships. And it becomes hard for you to really connect on an intimate way because it's so distorted.
Right, because it's it reminds you, right?
It reminds you. It's lessened over the years, but there's just times when you're I'm supposed to be enjoying my partner, right. And then you realize, oh wait, stop. Imagine that, and so that became my life. And how you were talking about the snowball effect. It's so true if you don't handle it, because I didn't, and I did it on my own. And I really didn't talk about it for the next 15 years or so my life was like a mess, and I was parenting. I was a new parent. I married a really great like Korean, I had a great Korean husband, and the marriage failed and everything. And like, I still didn't deal with anything. I didn't come to terms with that trauma. I just kept trying to make things better. So then years pass. I'm already divorced. I'm raising 2 boys. And I, like 5 years ago, was just out with a friend. Mm-hmm. And I was walking out to my car late at night. And I remember seeing somebody smoking. And then, just late night smoking on a dark sidewalk, right? And I ignored it. And I still don't know if that was the guy. Right. It could have been somebody else. I just remember passing. And then, you don't realize it happens to you again, and you get dragged into some park in the winter, and you don't realize it's happening again. And mind you, I've already taken self-defense classes. I've gone to intensive therapy. Mm-hmm. You are a motivational person, and you motivate your kids and their friends, and you don't realize. And I'm already at this time, I'm advocating for sexual assault, but people don't know why. I haven't told my story yet. Mm-hmm. So this thing happens to me again, and I'm realizing, like, have you really dealt with it? Have you really dealt with it? I mean, this is a sign. And you thought after all of those, self-protective measures, you've taken all of those, self-defense because you're a strong person. I'm not an easy person to pin down. Like, I'm a very strong girl. But for some reason, your defenses are gone because that's the system of you remembering that this has happened before. It's like a kid getting beaten up again. When do you really begin to fight? Yeah. After it's been done to you so many times. So that was my mentality, and I still struggle with that idea of like, I can't believe you didn't fight and you had a second chance to do it. Like, you've been talking so big that if it happens again, I'm gonna, and I didn't. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, you know what, it has to be different. This time I'm gonna report it. I remember it took me a day, and I went to Alexian Brothers in the suburbs. Yeah. The hospital closest to me, and I was like, this is what happened to me. And they're like, questions like, why did you wait a day? Or, what were you doing on that side of town when the cops came, or, because the Chicago police had to go to the suburbs and interview me themselves. Oh, like, okay. It couldn't be my local police because it happened here in the city. And so they were, they're probably already annoyed, like, why do we have to go to the suburbs? And so I get this line of questioning of like, in a gentle way, like, what were you doing there? And it's really important to have training on how you talk to people after something like that happens. And, even medical staff don't, they may see it a little bit more often, that they're desensitized almost, that it becomes habitual. It would have been nice to just been given a hug, or been told, like, I'm glad you came, even if you decided you may not want to talk about it, you still came, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you brought the clothes that you wore that night, and I'm glad. So it was like, already then everything was telling me, don't tell anyone. And that's why I think so many don't. I think they regret it. Mm-hmm. And I did regret it, because my rape kit is still floating around in the city of Chicago somewhere, and they never caught him. I wasn't even called back until about 9 months later to say like, hey, hello, and we noticed that there's this case that was open, and we're pursuing a lot of. This was when Me Too was starting to get starting to pick up speed a little bit, and so they said, we just noticed that you have a file here. Still, I went for a lineup once. Or was it twice? And how am I going to know who this person is? Either you have his DNA or whatever, you have my rape kit, or you don't. It was late at night. I was on my stomach. What do you want? It's like, there's only so much identifying factors that you can remember when you were being traumatized. And, your brain will block that out a little bit. And that's what happened. And it's still open. There's still a rape kit. I mean, there are thousands of rape kits. still open. So many like sexual victims,
and more
sexual assault
popping up. Like
victims.
here in Chicago, like the one we were just
Ruth.
talking about. Ruth, is that behind
Ruth George, UIC.
Oh, that one.
That
Yes,
one,
that
yeah.
one was.
There was that one.
That's a
because
catcalling one.
Because
Yeah,
she
it was
ignored his
catcalling.
catcalling, right?
I mean, and then she was on the phone, wasn't she, in her car?
No,
and
I
then he
didn't-
knocked and he assaulted her and murdered her in the UIC on UIC grounds.
It was in the parking lot.
I hate that it took that to happen for UIC to be like, okay, now we're gonna have 24-hour security.
Yeah.
It should have been like that in the beginning.
They have a really great, Ada and I work. She invited me to come do a lot of, her events because she's part of that group, but it's like a little organization that's there to support, the kids on campus. And this is one of their big things. It's like, what happens if you talk about sexual traumas or things that are happening while on school grounds? Do you have a process? And apparently there's like things that are broken in that process on campus, and probably on most campuses. Like, what do you do? And how many, these assault cases are actually being reported at that?
Yeah.
So, Ada and her team, they do a lot of that on campus and how to make it okay and that it's all confidential and all of these things and giving them resources. But did it really take... Is that really the first time something like that has happened?
Right.
Yeah.
And then I feel so bad. I mean, she was catcalled. We get catcalled women all the time. All the time. And, people think it's like, oh, it's just catcalling, just ignore them. But really, it's such a scary thing. Because how do you act? In our heads, we're already thinking, women are like, how do you act when somebody catcalls you? Just ignore. But do we really have to do that?
Yeah.
Why do we need all these tools to protect ourselves? Because we're like, the feminine sex, and we need to like learn how to speak so people don't think that we're revealing too much or dress a certain way or there's this wonderful artist that does work. She has a piece on the Columbia College grounds that says something like, I'm not supposed to smile, or don't tell me I'm supposed to smile, because that's one thing that catcallers will say, like, smile for me, or and you're like, I don't have to smile for you. I'm not here to bring you any type of emotion. I'm just here.
Yeah.
So it's so sad what's happening on these campuses.
That is very sad. And I remember there was also, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, about that, I believe it happened in, you said McKinley Park?
Yeah, I believe it was a little girl that was like, as soon as she stepped off the train station, a guy was like waving at her from the white van, like to get her attention, but someone was already following her, like in the train ride, so they like pushed her into the van. So it was like
oh my god,
it was like a partner type thing, and then they groped her, I believe, and then they dumped her the next few blocks later, and then they reported, the cops were like on it, but that's what happened.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
And then there's also River North. You hear about El Jefe, where like the security guards
and that they have like a history of doing this. They somebody just happened to catch the security tape this time and turn it in. But I mean, and now the security tape is missing. Like,
what?
Yeah, somebody was saying that online. They're like, yeah, and ironic, or was it the old ones? I think the old ones are now missing. Like all of a sudden, there's
erased.
like days where it's like erased or missing. But I mean, you can't ignore stuff like that.
Yeah, you cannot.
But it happens all the time, every day, every minute.
The one time I've ever witnessed like an actual catcalling, but surprisingly, so my friend, we were walking together down River North, and the guy was like, "Oh damn girl, you look good. Like what's up?" But all she did was like, "Yeah, you're right. Like I look good." So I didn't see it as
right,
or she didn't respond like ignore. So it was very interesting to me that she was like playing it off.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that, I guess?
You know what? It really depends. Maybe she also felt safer because you were there. When you have like a group with you, if you're alone and you're being catcalled like that, it's a very different game. But I'm seeing more women feeling more empowered about it. Seeing like, I know, or has like a really great comeback. I've been seeing that a little bit more. But, there's like me who was taught by my mom to, just don't look, don't talk to them, don't give them any inkling that you hear them, pretend you don't. And it also helps to just like have a backup plan. I know it's silly to rehearse and stuff, but now when I'm alone and I know I'm walking and I see like a guy or just hanging out there, I'll put on my phone and pretend I'm on the phone.
See, we both have sisters, younger sisters, and I hate that women have to be raised from the beginning to be like, learn these tools when the guys should also be taught.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Do that.
You're right. I think that's just women in general are taught that naturally. Protect yourself, protect yourself, protect yourself, protect your body, protect your private areas, you know? Whereas boys are like, be boys, grow up. That masculine, you know, that masculine side can protect themselves. But really, this happens to boys a lot too. And I think that is one of the saddest things is that, yes, this happens a lot to women. We're able to speak more to women and their openness now, especially to be able to talk about that. But how many men are not able to still talk about it? Because that stigma is so much stronger.
Yeah.
You know,
of being assaulted?
Being a man and having been sexually assaulted or, you know, or violated or how many really talk about it?
That's the same with mental health.
I would actually think that a lot of men would not talk about that just because of the fact that, like, you know, men in, like, you know, our society, they're taught, or like we're pretty much raised and taught to be like, show no emotion, right? We're taught to be like a blank slate, right? We're taught to be like, whatever happens, just suck it up and move on, right? And it's like, even though we're human and we have emotions, we're told that we don't have emotion, we can't have emotion, just because we have to be that like strong figure in front of everyone else. And it's like, but that's not really who they are, right? And I'm not saying, you know, like some people are like that and some people are clearly not, right? There's gonna be like discrepancies, right? And it just doesn't fit one mold.
No,
right?
People are people, you know, and yes, we were raised a very different way, but I think there's a long-standing history of just men having to act like men and keep their feelings to themselves. And then you realize there's this also pattern of when they get married, they're expected to express. So they're raised not to express. Then they're supposed to express. And then there's this confusion of why men have a very difficult time in, you know, understanding their emotions when they're being told and raised to not talk about that. And then later you find out, like, your partners, because they're modern day, especially in these days and times, we're supposed to, like, communicate and be, you know, more open with each other. So there's this confusion all the time for men, I feel. You know, and then what are men supposed to do? You know, we were taught that we're not supposed to talk about, we're just supposed to solve problems.
Internally.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, and that we have a goal, and that is to bring stability into any home, into any family. And I think in our Asian communities, this is very, very much the case.
It is very much the case.
For me, like, we always talk about this in our podcast episodes, but like for my mental health with depression and stuff, so if I've never met Rachel, right, my fiance, I probably would still be feeling some type of way, like keep everything buried down, but because of this open communication, and she like forces me to express myself, like I've been able to become more of like an open book, and I feel lighter when I talk about the stuff that most people won't, because it's the stigma.
Yeah. I love talking about mental health. It's like this thing now because, you know, our community especially has a very difficult time in understanding the importance of mental health and openness, destigmatizing that.
It should be normal to talk about it, right? Like you were saying earlier, we shouldn't tiptoe around people who go through these things. Just be direct, and then, I mean, obviously understand boundaries as well, but
of course.
But
But be able to talk about it. Like, it shouldn't change the public's view of you. If you say, I have bipolar disorder and I'm having a hard time, and I'm going to have days when I'm really extremely happy, and I have moments it could flip in a minute. You know, how many of us can really say that to our families without them saying, you know, just get over it, or, you know, just sleep it off, or it's, you know, chemical imbalances are chemical imbalances. You know, and and more so now with the food that we eat and the environment that we have. And there's so much like ADD and ADHD in the world because they're saying, oh, that's such a problem. But then we have like internet, phone, like they're giving us all of these tools to be crazy, you know, all the time.
Yeah.
You're like, answer your phone. Now you have an iWatch. Answer this, answer
Here's
that.
Here's a fidget spinner.
Right. You know, I did, I don't know if you guys caught, I did a play a few weeks ago, which was about destigmatizing mental health. And it worked in cooperation with a UIC class that talks about, you know, mental illness and trauma and all of that. And Circa Pinteg is a Filipino-based theater company here in Chicago. They've been around for a few decades. And this is the third year that they've partnered with UIC in this class. And so there's the students that allowed us to act their written stories. Some of them are really traumatic. Some of them are talking about their immigration stories and how it changed their families' lives. And there was one monologue in particular that I was asked to do, and it was about this Muslim student who was getting beaten up at home. And in turn, she was a high schooler that was already drinking at home in her room to like burn out that pain, and she was cutting. But on the outside, it kept showing that she was this happy, well put together, wealthy kid. Mm-hmm. But at home, you know, she has bruises, scars, and this was how she was dealing with it. And these are real stories. So that was the project, and it was all individual stories of these students. And one of them had like both parents commit suicide. And it was like really hard, you know, to hear that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't realize how mental health in Asian communities or just in minority communities aren't in the best places. Yeah. No one's talking about it.
Yeah.
Do people still cut themselves?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's still a prevalent thing. Like, I mean, depending on, I guess, where the individual's currently at, like their current like state of mind and everything like that, a lot of them do it just because I want to say it. I had a friend that I actually asked before, and they were telling me that it just made them feel normal.
It releases. It's like the visual look of seeing something internal come out because they can't express it. So they see it coming out in blood and cutting. And it's really hard, you know, to believe it's a lot more prevalent than we think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they say like 1 in 4 people are cutters?
I'm not sure.
Something like that.
I'm not too sure.
I don't know, but it was like some incredible statistic like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people too who don't cut will punch themselves. There's a lot of self-inflicted pain. Yeah. That's a lot of they'll look in the mirror and like punch themselves. It's become a thing. Like a lot of self-inflicted pain because they can't express. Yeah. And that's the problem, is that they can't express, or there are not enough support or resources, or people feel helpless.
Yeah.
You know,
and a lot of them also kind of like just go the route of just kind of use and abuse certain like drugs and paraphernalia.
Oh yeah, alcoholism. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a problem when people don't talk. It really is.
You know, I'm wondering now, when Maddie asked why Asian people go to raves so much, I feel like a lot of Asian people have so many issues that these shows are therapeutic. Because like you said,
the numbing. Like, like make it loud, make it like lights, everything. Yeah. Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to, there's drugs, great. You know, like, I feel like, you know.
Right?
Yeah. I still can't believe it's such a big thing.
Raving
is still a big deal. Like, it was a big deal when I was in high school and on.
I think it's just growing.
Yeah. Is it really? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We go to shows sometimes and we still see like a bunch of Asian people, and like
we just see people of like all shapes and sizes. It's just like everyone goes there, and a lot of them are on certain drugs, and a lot of them are just very inebriated by like just drinking a lot of alcohol. And then you have other people that are just kind of just there, you know, they had a few drinks, they're having fun and just hanging out with their friends, you know.
Chilling,
yeah.
And that really kind of goes to show, right? It's like I never thought about it like that, you know, like kind of going to shows and like kind of how, like we just connected all the dots, right? Like drinking to kind of numb out their own emotions, taking drugs to numb out emotions and everything like that. And just self-harm and everything. And just kind of seeing that and just putting that into like a rave or like a show, and just it makes me want to kind of like just walk down that stage, right? And just kind of like talk to everyone and be like, what's going on?
Can you imagine if there was like a counseling booth?
That would be awesome.
I mean, it just dawned on me, like, what if there was like a table, like if you need to talk to somebody while you're here? Because imagine being like high at the moment, right, on something, and then you realize you're having because everybody's reaction to a high is different.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like drinking, right? You're either a happy drunk, an angry drunk, a crying drunk. Yeah. What if there was a booth there?
Oh my God.
Of somebody ready to talk to you, and there's like 20 people. 20 volunteers of like either students that are studying psychology or want to go into therapy.
This is a great idea.
Is that a great idea?
That is a really good idea.
And just start like a small nonprofit of like volunteer, go to colleges and say, hey, if you're pursuing, counseling or social work or psychology, if you would like to volunteer your time for this, we'd be happy to write a letter to recommend you for your teacher or your class that you need this for. Just so, we just need people on call that, know. I just want to listen to people that are having...
Oh,
therapy. Look at his mind. His mind is already like, hey, I really like this idea. But it is such a good idea.
It is a really good idea. It's kind of like how I know it was really prevalent a little while ago during like all these like festivals. Like there'd be like people that were there and they would set up booths, right, to actually test drugs to make sure that if you're going to be using, we want you to at least make sure that you are taking what you bought,
like either they're safe or
they're
something,
safe.
that they're not like spiked with something that'll kill you, because then it becomes a liability for us. Like if you want to have it looked at, we are here. But it's great to have like a mental health or support booth. It doesn't even need to show mental health, because that phrase, those two words terrify people.
Chill
just be like, or like hang with a friend. Like if you need someone to talk to, it's like a hug buddy. Like, hey, like if you just need a hug, or because there's so many people that are high or drunk that it's their best time to break down the walls. Look at us.
I know, right?
Look at us already business development. Like we have an idea.
Yeah, right.
Ooh. Patent pending.
I know. Don't take it, people. Yeah, right. Don't take our idea.
We'll create it before we air this episode.
We'll trademark it, LLC.
Yeah.
But didn't they say too, though, a lot of like groping, sexual assaults, and all of that either come post or during these events? Like, wasn't there like a festival in Europe that said like this? Holy, that powder color festival? Their largest reports of sexual assault, at least in Bangalore when I was working there, was the Holi festival.
That is crazy.
Because when they're free, that's when the men would grope.
Oh.
It did not dawn on me that, because a lot of their groping and sexual assaults happen when on a bus and they're in tight quarters, when the women, don't have a choice to move.
It's like Japan too.
Yeah, Japan, that's a big thing. So can you imagine this holy happy festival of color is the largest percentage of reports of sexual assault and sexual violence is during and after. I was like, the happiest festival, and you guys are like, no. So that's, you can imagine that, like, even in raves, can you imagine? Men too, like, I imagine a lot of this stuff happens.
I do want to say, like, when I'm very proud of, especially my guy friends. So when Rachel went to a festival without me, and I was just like, I was fine. I didn't want to go.
Right.
But she went out there, and then Trouble actually was protecting Rachel, because Rachel was getting like hit on by a guy, and he was like, "This is my girlfriend. Back off."
Yeah. And see, that's so nice.
And I was like, "Damn, thank you."
Like, I'll do that for you any day, buddy. Yeah. Like, that's really nice, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That reminds me of like back in the day when I used to really go to a lot of these festivals or these shows, and like my like we call them like your festival fam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like we would be in this really large group, and we would pretty much, a lot of us, what we'd do, we were just kind of like in like a perimeter more or less, right, for the group, and it's like we're just there hanging out, having fun with everyone, but at the same time still looking out for everyone else. Especially when it's like a festival, when you're there in the morning and then it goes all the way to night, or not morning, but like, like afternoon.
Some of
time.
those do 2 days,
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
2
3
3 days.
yeah.
Some of those festivals can
Yeah.
really go on.
Yeah, and then when it's like completely dark, you can't see anyone, you have people just trying to sneak their way in and just kind of like, do their own thing. And yeah, I've seen a few of those people, and I just said, I don't think there's a good idea that you're going into the center of this group, man.
No.
And they're just like slowly, like they're very like quiet about it, like they're looking, and they're slowly just trying to wiggle their way in.
Right.
And then I'm like, man, what are you doing?
Yeah. I have to say, when I go out, when I go to a club or, and I see, especially Asian women by themselves, they're always with a group.
Yeah.
And I have to respect that. Like, you can see the guys, they're not with the girls. They're just friends. But even when they're with a girlfriend, they will be very protective of that group. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I like that, like that's so impressive. Like they're just, and it's like all the time when I go out, especially when my cousin's in town, we go out drinking and going out dancing. And I see these, I keep joking with them. I'm like, hey, maybe we should expand our Asian going out group, because they're so protective of their clan. Like, it's a very interesting thing. It's
a really weird and interesting dynamic. I can't explain why, but it's just, for me, like when I'm out there and I'm just having fun, and I'm just there to have fun, right, with like all my friends. And then when I just see a complete stranger that I have no idea who you are, and you're just kind of like, not even just getting into the circle, right?
Just
but
like starting to talk
when they start to approach
right.
one of the girls that are clearly single or that has a boyfriend, right? And they're just trying to like not even talk to them, not even say hi, but just get behind them. And then
I'm
like,
my God,
doing?
I hate that. Like, what are you doing,
sir?
Like,
are you okay?
Nobody even asks either. They're just like wedging themselves. I'm like, okay, all right. How about you ask me if that's okay? Mm-hmm. Like, that's so funny. It's like club culture. Right? You don't.
It's like you just like look up and just like dancing, wiggling your arms, just sliding into like it's like you're sliding in like a pack of sardines.
You guys don't know, they're like wiggling in their seats right now.
Have you seen the Seattle dance?
Yeah.
Or there's like guys with their hands up, they're just like looking down at you, and they're like hovering behind you, and you're like, what are you doing?
Well, that's why like I find some enjoyment in it, but like at the same time, I'm not trying to use my friends for enjoyment. And in seeing other people try to approach them like that, I just happen to be in the back all the time, or I'll be going to the washroom, going to get a beer, and then coming back, and I just see like this group of people, and they're just kind of like slowly doing that like weird dance move, right? Trying to slide
the hover. They're kind of like going sideways in, and they're just like, but they're not embarrassed that there's a group. Yeah, like, no, you are bold. Yeah. That says a lot that you're coming in here. You don't know if this girl you're talking to is with somebody, and are you blind? Like, there's a group of them. Like, be wary of the group, but they'll still do it.
Yeah, I just come back and I'm just standing there. I'm just like looking at the guy. I'm like,
you're like, what?
And I just walk up to him. I'm like, hey, sir, can I help you?
We could do
and then he just like, he just looks back like, oh god, and then just like he just runs away into like the crowd. And
we could do like a full podcast, just like a podcast series on club culture.
Oh my god, yeah.
And what happens? Like, we could start naming like categories of people. Like, this is the weirdo. Like, this is like
the wiggler.
Yeah, the wiggler. This is the wedger.
Right.
This is like the floor humper. Like, this is like there's always, and this is like the bathroom stalker. There's always one guy that somehow noticed I went to the bathroom, and it's some guy I already saw on the dance floor, and he's like, so, hey.
Oh, can like he followed you and waited for you.
Yeah, that happens a lot to girls. Like, that's why we go in gross. People are like, why do you guys go together? Like, because when we come out of these club bathrooms or bar bathrooms, there's always some guy that already tried to hit on us earlier and just wants to talk.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
So what were our questions?
Yes, that's
I'm so excited about what we got.
We're actually just about to get there.
So the first question from Steven, he asked, "What is the Steven, my best friend?" Yeah. He said, "What is the most important takeaway from your healing process? How did it look?"
Oh wow, I love these kinds of questions. I think the best takeaway I have is that I learned to realize, like, if you look back on all the traumatic things that happen in your life, there's still some joy in there somewhere. Like, it's not, your life doesn't have to be just your traumas. Ever. You don't have to encapsulate and make your whole life, or whatever 90 plus years we have on this earth, just be that trauma. Like, that changed my life. It doesn't have to. Like, we start every day with another opportunity. That's like my thing, is like, we're still here every day.
Yeah, I was actually going to like bring that up, like your TED talk, how you said like, we're still here. I was like, that's a really deep statement.
It's so simple.
It's you're still here, 3 words. And I feel like that alone, to everyone that's listening to it, will have a completely different interpretation of it.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll just go the long way.
You could be, like I was saying in that TED Talk, you could be going through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
You could be just having simple, like, management issues, communication issues with your parents. And it always feels, depending on that person, depending on what they're going through, that it's so significant.
Yeah.
That you don't think you can make it another day, you know? And then you realize, like, wait a minute, 24 hours just passed and I have a difference. I can text that person today and talk to them differently. And maybe it won't work, but I have tomorrow too, and the next day,
That's
and
true.
It's brand new. And I know it's the simplest thing, but that has been probably the one thing that has allowed me to say, okay, everything's going to be okay. Yeah. And, you know, you kind of have to, with little and big types of issues that have come in your life, because if you don't, like, what's the point?
Right.
So that is my biggest takeaway for sure, is that, like, I have another chance to make my life what I want it to be every day. And it doesn't have to be, and I can rebrand myself. I can go from speaking today, and maybe I decide I want to be a writer, or maybe I'll go and be a teacher, since that's what I, you know, it just, people are so stuck in, I was put in this situation, or blaming other situations. Just blame yourself. Like, it's really up to you, like, how you want it to be in the most subtlest or greatest of ways, like what you want your life to be.
Yeah.
So thanks, Stephen. I really like that.
Thank you for that one.
Next question is from Matt. He said, will you address the dismissal of rape in prisons?
Oh my gosh, it's always dismissed. It's almost like accepted. Like, oh, you're going to be raped in prison.
Yeah,
like, good luck to you.
That's part of the culture, and it's really shocking.
It really is, on both male and female, you know, prisons. That is like the running joke, is like, oh, I hope you don't drop the soap, or, you know, like, oh, I feel bad for you. You can hear that even in angry conversation when somebody is exiled into jail or put into prison. You say, like, oh, you better watch your back. You know, there's almost this acceptance that that's going to happen if you go to prison. Like, it doesn't have to be. And I wonder what kind of reform is there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
For that. It'd be an interesting thing. It's never something I've looked at, but it is interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Next question from Alex is, what are your plans going forward with your acting?
Oh, my acting. It's like, you know, I left film probably like 6-7 years ago. That was like my one thing. And the stage even longer. And then I was brought back to do this Circup and Tig thing. And I was like, are you sure you want me to do this? I haven't done stage in like 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we know you'll be great. And it ended up like reigniting like my love for it.
Oh, awesome.
And, you know, like, I don't know what the future will hold for me in that, but I realized, like, even in film acting, there was something always missing. You know, I didn't enjoy, you know, the audition process as much, or the hustle for one project to another, because I could have easily probably grown into something more with it. I had all the opportunity to do it, but there was something, I wanted to come home, first of all. I was, you know, just all the time away from my kids. And at the same time, I didn't feel the same fulfillment I feel when I'm advocating, or when I'm writing, or doing nonprofit work.
Okay.
Like, I if I'm going to be away from my kids, I want to choose something that I can say, you know, I was developing a program. That's why Mom wasn't here for a weekend or a week, or not, oh, I was filming a sci-fi film for the Sci-Fi Network. Like, that's what I feel like my life was turning into. And it didn't feel like it was worth leaving family for
Yeah.
anymore. So if there's something local, and there's always, like, an agent that's like, hey, so, since you're going back to acting, my agent in LA was like, do you want to do some Chicago fires, some Chicago PD, some Chicago med stuff? And it's easy. We can do that. And I was like, no. Like, I just, again, if I'm going to be away, it has to be for something good. Doing Circa Pinteg was a big thing because it was a destigmatization of mental illness in the Asian communities. I'm going to do a project like that. Right. Yeah. That's worth. I even brought my kid on set a lot so he could see that this is the type of work that I'm doing. Yeah. So if you're going to, be away from the kids or your families or whatever, put your time into, I would always suggest, like, make it worth it.
Right. For sure.
So, yeah, probably, maybe, but it would have to be the right project.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Last question from Rachel. I know we kind of dabbled in this, but tell us about your healing process. So I guess you can bullet point them?
Yeah. Like, I can just, generalize them.
Sure.
Okay, healing process, definitely pursue something in the arts. I'd say if you're healing from something traumatic, immediately find an expressive way to do it. Write a song, write a poem, write a paragraph, write one line every day on your journal, like something that lets it out, so you can visualize it and see it in form. Definitely get active with your community. There's always something in your community, like our Asian community will always have something, like Circa Pinteg is a big resource for me, but there are also others. Like there's a mental illness focused organizations now, nonprofit organizations that work within communities. So find your spot. There's always support there. Like that's my healing thing. And another thing is, don't be afraid to talk about it. Like it was only when I decided to really come out with my story 5 years ago when I was like, I think I'm the most well-rounded and most healed I've been in my whole life.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the big things. Outlet, artistically, if not just something. Have an outlet. Work out. Do anything that lets all that energy come out in a positive way. I definitely do not suggest drugs or alcoholism because you can enjoy those things, but when you make it as something to numb, that specific trauma.
Spiral.
It can get really bad.
Snowball effect.
And friends. Yeah. Find that one trusted person, that won't judge you.
Confine in them.
Because that alone is therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to wrap up, what is one bit of advice you would like to give our listeners? It could be life advice. It could be related or not related to this topic. Yes.
You're allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to have fucked up a lot. Is that okay to say? Because I swear a lot, but people don't know that. But you are allowed to fuck up. And that doesn't mean you are a fuck up.
Yeah.
Right. You are allowed to make mistakes all the time, and you're gonna make a million more. You're not meant to live a life that's not flawed. You are gonna be a flawed person, but you can be right. But I think people focus too much on having the perfect job and having the perfect relationships and having the perfect path in life. If you really look at it, kudos to those that have been able to do those things, but even they have fucked up. It's okay to be flawed. And then you have the tie-in of you have every day to make everything better. You restart every day and you can make it different.
You're still here.
You're still here.
There you go.
That's my thing. I love it. I should make t-shirts.
There you go. That's another business idea.
I should make t-shirts. I'm still here. Okay, we need to write this all down.
All right. So Mae, is there any pages or any type of shout outs you want to give out to plugging in yourself or
I'm everywhere. I'm really accessible. If anybody wants to just tell their story, I get that a lot. You can. I'm so accessible through social media. I do reply. So, write me a note. Yeah. I have a Facebook page. I have a Facebook fan page, all Mae Flores. If you go on Instagram, that is probably the big connector right now. That's how we even connected. Yeah. Look at official Mae Flores on Instagram. I do respond. So, if you have any questions, need resources, or just need to tell me your problems, I will be there.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So that...
Yes, so thank you for coming on. If for our listeners, make sure to follow, rate, review, comment on our platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff. This is how we grow, and we really listen to your feedback. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you. And with that said, again, just follow Mae Flores. She's doing big things, especially within our community and like with just the world, like just kind of like establishing certain topics that are currently very like touchy to kind of like dabble in. She's like breaking boundaries, and that's just awesome. Like I just see all that stuff and it's amazing.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for having me, you guys.
It's our pleasure to have you on. And to our listeners and viewers, we just want to say thank you for coming on. And thank you for dining with us. I know we didn't have any food. We just had
We're
coffee
dining
today.
on Starbucks.
Yes,
Thank you,
exactly.
Starbucks.
Thank you,
Yes,
Starbucks.
sponsor.
Hopefully,
Thank you.
fingers
Let's
are
get a
crossed.
sponsorship.
Fingers are crossed. Maybe. I do drink a lot of Starbucks. But with that said, we will catch you guys on the next one. So take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.